Usually when we start these deep dives, I like to set a scene that feels a bit, cinematic.
Sure, a quiet library, a high-tech laboratory, that kind of thing.
Exactly. A
Yeah.
historic battlefield, maybe. But today, I want you to erase all of that polish. I want you to picture something messy.
Messy is definitely the right word. It's almost claustrophobic, the source we're looking at.
It really is. I want you to imagine you are standing in a massive, echoing exhibition hall in Celle, Germany. It's the Professional Beekeepers Days.
And if you've never been to a German trade show, it's an experience.
Just imagine a concrete cavern filled with the dull roar of hundreds of conversations, the clattering of wooden equipment, maybe the faint smell of beeswax mixed with, stale coffee and pretzel dough.
Yeah.
It is loud. It is chaotic.
And our window into this world isn't a BBC documentary crew. It is not a polished YouTube influencer with a ring light and a perfectly framed shot.
No. It is a handheld camera, and it's shaking violently. The angle is, well, it's mostly chins and nostrils, to be honest.
It's all very up close and personal.
The cameraman refuses to use a tripod. He actually says on the recording that he's doing it this way because it's very rough. He calls it stand-up comedy.
It feels like we've stumbled into a bootleg recording of a secret meeting that we weren't supposed to see.
It does. It creates this incredible sense of immediacy, doesn't it? You feel like you are eavesdropping on something raw.
You're right in the middle of it.
And the man holding this shaky camera, the man whose nostrils feature so prominently in the shot, is Jürgen Binder. He's wearing a beanie hat, he's shouting over the noise of the crowd, and he is in the middle of a very intense, very German argument with another man, Ralf Matulat.
And just to be clear for you, they aren't arguing about the meaning of life or the fate of the European Union. Okay, actually, they sort of are, but on the surface.
On the surface, they are arguing about a wooden box lid.
A lid, a literal cover for a beehive.
But as we watched this video and broke down the transcript, it became so obvious that they aren't just arguing about a lid. This is a collision of two completely different universes.
It is. It's about molecular physics, it's about global macroeconomics, and it's about a very specific cultural anxiety that's bubbling up.
It really is. And it serves as this perfect microcosm to answer a question we get asked a lot, especially from our American listeners.
The German over-engineering question?
Exactly. We hear that phrase all the time. Usually it's about cars, right?
Fair.
The idea that a German engineer will design a cup holder with 42 moving parts because, because they can.
Because why make it simple when you can make it perfect and perfectly complicated?
Right. The stereotype is that complexity is the goal. If it's simple, it's suspicious. If it requires a specialized laser tool to operate, it's quality.
So the mission for this deep dive is to take this gritty, shaky conversation and use it as a case study. We are going to ask, is this discussion the ultimate proof of German over-engineering in beekeeping?
And the answer we found is, well, it's complicated. Because yes, they spend 20 minutes debating the dew point and condensation physics of a piece of styrofoam.
Which, on its face, sounds like a slam dunk. Yes.
But the reason they are doing it, it's not because they are nerds just geeking out. It's because they are terrified.
It's about survival, economic survival, and that's what makes this story so gripping.
So let's peel back the layers here. We have to start with the cast of characters. Because Jürgen Wiener, he is not your typical farmer.
Not at all. In the video, he is physically dominating the frame. He's the one holding the camera, so he controls our perspective entirely.
He's aggressive, he interrupts, he's just relentless.
He positions himself as the professional, the Bindermeister, you could say, the master beekeeper. He looks at the state of beekeeping in Germany, and he sees a complete disaster.
He uses the phrase clogged up.
He does. He sees an industry that is being clogged up by hobbyists and amateurs who, in his view, don't know what they are doing and are actually harming the bees and the market.
And he does not pull his punches. The guy he's arguing with, Ralf Matulat, is the complete opposite.
A total foil.
Ralf is the diplomat. He runs a YouTube channel called Viel gewinnt, which translates to something like diversity wins or a lot wins.
And his whole vibe is inclusivity. Let's show all the different ways to do things.
Ralf is standing there smiling, trying to be the peacemaker. He's saying, hey, let's show different methods. Let's all get along.
And Binder just eats him alive for it. It's almost uncomfortable to watch.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
Binder mocks him. He calls him a YouTube star and a cineast, making fun of the fact that Ralf usually has nice lighting and proper editing on his channel.
Unlike Binder's own very rough style.
But then he gets really nasty. He attacks Ralph's masculinity.
Yeah, this is the testicles comment. It's a shocking moment.
Let's unpack that for a second. Binder basically looks at this nice diplomatic man and asks him where his testicles were during the recent political debates. He actually uses the Spanish word cojones.
He says you don't have the cojones to take a stand.
And this is so crucial to understanding Binder's worldview. He sees Matulat's approach, this let's harmonize, let's include everyone philosophy, as a fatal weakness.
For Binder, there is an objective truth. There's a right way and a wrong way to keep bees.
And if you are tolerant of the wrong way, you aren't being nice. You are being complicit in failure, in animal cruelty even.
It's not live and let live. It's do it right or get out of my way.
Exactly. And this intensity isn't just because he's a grumpy guy. There's a fascinating intellectual backstory here. The Binder drops into the conversation almost as an aside.
The anthroposophy connection.
Okay, we need to pause on that.
Yeah.
Anthroposophy.
Yeah.
For the listener who might just think of Waldorf schools or, eurythmy, what on earth does this have to do with bees?
Well, it all goes back to Rudolf Steiner, the Austrian philosopher. And Binder mentions that he spent 4 years in training 3 for Waldorf education and 1 specifically in anthroposophy.
That's a serious commitment.
It is, and he talks a name. Frank Teichmann.
Who is Frank Teichmann?
Teichmann was a renowned Egyptologist, a scholar of antiquity. Binder talks about learning to read Steiner's texts under this Egyptologist. He mentions reading 17 books and 250 volumes of lectures.
That is a staggering amount of homework for a guy who spends his days in a bee suit.
But this is the key to the German perspective here, or at least Binder's version of it. For him, farming isn't just industrial production, it's Geist als Wissenschaft, which translates roughly to spiritual science.
So the farm, or the hive in this case, is seen as an organism.
Exactly. It has a soul, it has an objective reality. And this leads to a line in the video that just stopped me in my tracks. Binder says, the bee is objective.
The bee is objective. That's a heavy statement. What does he mean by that?
He means the bee doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care if you want to be a natural beekeeper or a conventional one. The bee is governed by biological laws.
And if you violate them?
The bee suffers, the colony dies. So when Binder is screaming at Ralf Matulat, he's not just arguing about a piece of equipment. He feels a moral imperative. He believes he has done the deep esoteric study to understand the truth of the bee, and he's surrounded by people who he thinks just watched a 10-minute YouTube video and called it a day.
So we have the warrior priest of beekeeping versus the modern diplomat.
A perfect summary.
And the battleground for this clash of civilizations is the Klimadeckel.
The climate lid.
This is where we really have to get into the weeds of the over-engineering question.
Mm-hmm.
Because to an American beekeeper, and I've seen plenty of American hives, the lid is a pretty simple affair.
It's a roof.
It's a wooden cover.
Oh.
Maybe it's a telescoping one, maybe a migratory one. You put it on top to keep the rain out. If it's windy, you put a brick on it. End of story.
Simple, functional, done. But in this conversation, Binder treats the lid like it is a component of a life support system on Mars. He takes us on a 20-minute deep dive into thermodynamics.
He starts lecturing about the dew point.
The dew point. And to be fair, this is legitimate physics. The core problem they're all trying to solve is moisture management inside the hive.
Okay, so break that down for us. Why is moisture such a big deal?
Well, bees generate heat and they breathe. In the winter, they form a tight cluster to stay warm. And just like us, they exhale water vapor.
And warm air holds more moisture than cold air. Basic physics.
Exactly. As that warm, moist air rises from the cluster, it hits the top of the hive.
And if the top of the hive is cold, like the cold wooden lid,
the air cools down instantly. It can't hold the moisture anymore, and it condenses. It turns back into liquid water.
And cold water dripping onto a cluster of winter bees is basically a death sentence.
Wet bees are dead bees, as the old beekeeping saying goes. It leads to chill, disease, everything bad.
So the standard American pragmatic solution is usually what? Ventilation?
Mostly, yeah. You put a small notch in the inner cover, you let the wind blow through, the moist air goes out the chimney, so to speak.
Or you could just insulate the top really heavily.
Right, so that the condensation point, the dew point, moves to the side walls of the hive, which are colder. The water runs down the sides instead of dripping on the bees. Simple, efficient.
But Binder wants to engineer the perfect solution. He talks about the Klimadeckel, an insulated lid that uses semi-permeable membranes.
I was waiting for you to say that. It sounds so technical.
It sounds like something from NASA. Is it like a high-tech rain jacket? Like Gore-Tex for bees?
That is the perfect analogy. It's exactly like Gore-Tex. He explains that he wants a material that allows the tiny water vapor molecules to pass through, that's diffusion, but creates a barrier that keeps the larger heat energy molecules inside.
So he wants the hive to breathe without getting cold.
Precisely. And he gets incredibly specific. He talks about the diffusion openness of the materials. He goes on this long rant about the bad plastic foil that many hobbyists just throw on top of their hives.
Oh, he hates the plastic
He
foam.
despises it. He calls it a damp cave. He says putting a plastic sheet over the bees is practically animal cruelty because it traps the moisture completely and breeds mold and pathogens.
But here's where it gets ludicrously detailed, and you really see the over-engineering mindset. Binder doesn't just have one lid.
No, he's running field trials.
He lists the varieties he is currently testing. He has the jupe lid, he has the linser lid, he has a calcium silicate model.
Which sounds like a building material, not a beehive part.
And this is my favorite part. He mentions a jupe lid modified by Binder.
That is the absolute peak moment for me. The manufacturer, a company called Jupe, apparently released a special version of their lid that was modified according to Jürgen Binder's specific instructions.
So let me get this straight. We have a guy who claims to be a simple, no-nonsense professional, but he has his own signature series hive lid that involves specific foil layering and diffusion physics.
It's even more complex than that. He described the modification in detail. He uses a thermal foil, but only over the brood nest, the center part where the baby bees are, to reflect the heat back down.
Okay.
But he leaves the sides open to the wood so the moisture can travel up around the foil, hit the insulated lid, and diffuse out through specially designed slits. He's debating the airflow dynamics of a 2-centimeter gap while holding a shaky camera in a noisy hall.
And Matulat, the YouTuber, is just trying to keep up. You can hear him in the background asking, wait, so the moisture goes up?
And Binder just cuts him off. No. The heat stays down, the moisture diffuses. It's like a physics lecture delivered by a drill sergeant.
So, if we stop the deep dive right here, the verdict seems clear. This is the definition of German over-engineering.
Case closed. They're applying aerospace-level thermodynamics to a wooden box full of bugs.
But, and this is a huge but, there is a twist, because Binder is a walking contradiction.
He is. After spending 15 minutes ranting about the dew point and the membranes and the calcium silicate, Binder turns around and says, but actually, the lid is nonsense.
I laughed out loud when I read that part of the transcript. He calls it Firlefanz.
Which is a great German word. It means frippery or fancy nonsense.
He says the lid is maybe 5%, maybe 10% of beekeeping success. He looks directly into his shaky camera and yells at the audience to stop obsessing over equipment.
The man who owns 4 custom-engineered lids and has a signature series with a manufacturer is telling us to stop obsessing over equipment.
The irony is just, it's so thick you could cut it with a knife.
But this is the paradox of the expert, though, isn't it? Binder feels he has earned the right to obsess over that last 5% because he believes he's already mastered the other 95%.
Ah, that makes sense. His frustration is that beginners are starting with the 5%.
Not exactly. They think the lid is the magic bullet. They think, if I buy the Binder-modified jupe lid, my bees won't die. And Binder is screaming, no, your bees will die because you don't understand biology. The lid is just a tool.
It's like a pro cyclist who obsesses over the gram weight of his carbon fiber frame, but tells a beginner, just ride the bike, the gear doesn't matter.
Precisely. He's trying to engineer his way out of over-engineering. He wants to find the perfect lid so he never has to think about lids again, and he wants everyone else to just adopt his solution and move on.
And this leads directly into his other main obsession in this video, standardization. Because if he hates gadgets, he hates the German disease even more. The German disease? It sounds ominous, doesn't it?
Is it really that bad? I mean, in the U.S., a box is a box, right? Oh, in the German beekeeping world, it is legendary. In the U.S., if you decide you want to start beekeeping, you go online, you buy a Langstroth hive.
Right, invented in the 1850s. It's the standard.
It's a standard. You can buy parts from Amazon, from a local shop, from a catalog in another state, and they all fit together. It's like Lego. Total interoperability.
Okay. So what's it like in Germany?
In Germany, it's the Wild West. Complete chaos. You have the Zander hive. You have the Deutsch Normal hive, which means German standard, but it's one of many.
That's ironic.
Isn't it? Then you have Dat and Blatt. You have Dat at US, which is a different dimension from Dat and Blatt. You have Hoffman frames, which have little wooden shoulders to space themselves automatically. You have frames with straight sides. You have Segeberger styrofoam hives versus traditional wooden hives.
And every region has its own preference.
Every region, sometimes every village, has a specific traditional dimension that they swear by. It's a matter of local pride.
And I'm going to assume none of these fit together.
Not a single one. If you buy a colony of bees on Xander frames, you cannot put it into your Dadant box. The frames are a different size. It's a logistical nightmare for any kind of professional operation.
And Binder looks at this chaos and just despairs.
He does. He explicitly compares Germany unfavorably to its neighbors. He says, look at France, look at Italy, look at Poland. These are countries with huge professional honey industries. He says they have one or two standards. They just buy Dadant or Langstroth and they get to work.
He wants that American pragmatism, that focus on efficiency.
He craves it. He says that beginners in Germany are paralyzed by choice. They spend their entire first year on internet forums arguing about millimeter differences in frame sizes instead of learning how to manage the bees.
He says, it's a disease. We talk about boxes instead of biology.
It's his core thesis. So he's pleading with the German public. Just buy Dadant or Langstroth. Pick an international standard and stop reinventing the wheel.
But Matulat, the diplomat, he pushes back here, right?
He does. This is the Veal Gevint philosophy in action. He says, hey, let people do what they want. If someone wants to use a Xander hive, let them. Peaceful coexistence.
And Binder's response is just brutal.
It is. He says, not everything works. He argues that bad beekeeping is not a lifestyle choice. It is, in his view, animal cruelty.
He brings up the Bienenkiest, the bee box.
Right. The bee box is a very popular type of hive for hobbyists in Germany who want to practice natural beekeeping. The whole idea is minimal intervention.
Sounds nice and romantic.
It's very romantic. You put the bees in, you leave them alone, you harvest a tiny bit of honey at the end of the year.
And Binder hates it.
He despises it. He calls it cruelty.
Why? What's the problem with being natural?
Because for him, you can't inspect it properly. The combs are all fixed. You can't pull them out one by one like pages in a book to check for diseases. You can't manage the varroa mites effectively, which are the #1 killer of bees.
So you can't see what's going on inside?
Exactly. He says, you think you're being noble because you get 5 kilograms of honey and leave the rest to the bees. I tell you, you get 5 kilograms because your colony is sick and struggling and can't produce anymore.
That is a harsh truth to drop on a well-meaning hobbyist.
But it connects directly back to his biology-first philosophy. He argues that standardization equals control, and control equals welfare. If you have a standard frame, you can pull it out, check the queen, treat the mites, feed the colony if it's starving, and ensure its survival.
Whereas if you have a weird homemade box...
Or just watching them die slowly from the outside, and you call it nature. For Binder, using a standard industrial hive isn't about being a corporate sellout. It's about being a responsible guardian of the animal.
That's a powerful reframing of it.
He says 90% of success is biology. Parasite control, that's #1. Nutrition, never let them starve. Queen quality. And the location you put them in. The box, he says, is just the container.
Speaking of biology first, he shares a story in this video that I thought was brilliant. It's the happy accident regarding the hive floors.
Oh, the closed floor revelation. This is a perfect example of how Binder learns and how he's willing to admit when he's wrong, even if he's shouting about it.
Set the scene for us. What's the big debate about hive floors?
So for a long time, there's been this debate in beekeeping. Should the bottom of the hive be a screen, an open mesh, to let mites fall out and let air come in? Or should it be solid wood, a closed floor?
And the modern trend, the engineered trend, has been the open mesh floor, right?
Absolutely. For years, everyone loves ventilation. It's supposed to be healthier.
Makes sense. Fresh air is good.
But Binder admits that one winter, he simply just forgot, to remove the monitoring boards from a batch of hives after a varroa mite treatment.
And these boards, they slide in under the mesh.
They slide in under the mesh floor, effectively sealing it and making it a solid, closed bottom. So completely by accident, he left these hives with closed bottoms for the entire winter and early spring.
And he expected them to be moldy and dead.
He expected a total disaster. He thought he had suffocated them or created a damp, moldy mess. Instead, when he checked on them in the spring, he found that those colonies were exploding with growth.
Really?
They were weeks ahead of the colonies that had the proper open mesh floors. They were healthier, bigger, more robust.
Serendipity. So what was his theory? What happened?
His explanation to the listener is pure pragmatic logic. He uses a domestic analogy that's just perfect. He says, you don't open the windows of your house when the air conditioner is on.
Or in this case, when the heater is on. So simple when you put it that way.
It is. He realized that by following the engineering trend of open mesh floors, beekeepers were forcing the bees to burn insane amounts of energy just to heat the brood nest to the required 95 degrees Fahrenheit. The constant draft was sucking the heat out from below.
And by closing the floor.
He allowed the bees to control their own microclimate. They could finally heat their home efficiently.
So, biology. The bees' fundamental need for heat retention wins over the engineering trend of the fancy mesh floor?
Exactly. And his frustration is that people try to buy a gadget to fix a biological problem. They buy a fancy lid, but they leave the floor wide open, and then they wonder why their bees are weak, he's saying. Fix the management first. Understand the organism.
Now, I want to shift the backdrop a little. We talked about physics, we've talked about hive dimensions, but this conversation isn't happening in a vacuum.
Not at all.
Throughout the video, Binder paints a picture of an industry that is terrified. There's a lot of anxiety about money and politics bubbling just under the surface of this technical debate.
This is the why it matters section. Why is Binder so angry? Why is he so intense? It's because he's watching his profession collapse in real time.
And it starts with a piece of news from the convention itself. He mentions a resignation, right?
Yes. Seemingly moments before this video was shot, the president of the Professional Beekeepers Association, a woman named House Arnold, resigned. Suddenly. Right there at the event. Binder describes it as a shock. She just got up and left the room.
And Binder connects this directly to a failure of lobbying, a failure to represent the industry.
He does. He recounts this disastrous meeting with the state secretary, a high-level German politician. Binder and his team had prepared data, arguments, a professional strategy.
They were ready.
They were ready. But then the president of another beekeeping association, more of a hobbyist group, showed up with two other guys who were, in his words, totally unprepared. They had no data, no plan.
He calls it dilettantism.
He says they embarrassed the entire industry, they blame art themselves, and his point is brutal and political. The politicians look at this disorganized mess of beekeepers with conflicting messages and think, these aren't serious people, we can ignore them.
He uses that chilling phrase, if you are not at the table, you are on the menu.
A classic lobbying phrase. And he feels that German beekeepers are definitely on the menu right now.
And what does being on the menu look like? For him, it looks like the Mercosur trade deal.
Right. This is the existential threat that looms over the entire conversation. Binder drops some scary numbers. He talks about the trade agreement with South America, which would allow 45,000 tons of honey to enter the European Union completely duty-free.
45,000 tons.
Plus, he mentions a flood of cheap imports coming in from Ukraine.
And why is that a death sentence for German professionals? Is it just the competition?
It's the price gap. This was the most shocking part of the transcript for me. Binder breaks down the cost of a single jar of honey, and the math is just unforgiving.
Okay, walk us through that math.
Okay. A professional German beekeeper, someone who is efficient, uses a standard like Langstroth, has a good lid, runs it like a real business, can produce 1 kilogram of honey for a cost of about 8 to 10 euros.
So 10 euros per kilo, that's his cost basis. That covers his time, fuel, equipment depreciation, hygiene standards, everything.
Everything. Now, a hobbyist, because they are inefficient, have non-standard equipment, drive their personal car to a single hive in the backyard. Their real cost, if they calculated it properly, is closer to 30 euros per kilo.
Wow, that is a massive gap, 3 times as much.
But here is the kicker. The hobbyist doesn't treat it like a business. They sell their honey at the local market for, say, 15 euros a kilo, and they think, yay, I made 15 euros.
But they're not counting their own labor or their gas or the equipment they bought.
Not at all. They are subsidizing the honey with their day job, and Binder calls them market destroyers.
I see where this is going.
The hobbyist sets the street price at 15 euros. But the professional needs to sell his honey at 30 euros just to be sustainable, to pay for the truck, the taxes, the wages, to make a living.
But the consumer is not going to pay 30 euros if they can buy the hobbyist honey right next to it for 15.
Exactly. And they definitely won't pay 30 euros if they can buy the imported South American honey in the supermarket for 6.
So the professional is being squeezed from below by cheap global imports, and from the side by subsidized hobbyists who don't even realize they're doing it.
It's a race to the bottom, and the professional is losing. Binder sees the profession of German beekeepers facing extinction. He says, to be sustainable, we need 30 euros a jar. But the market is completely broken.
This context changes everything. It completely changes how we hear the lid debate.
It absolutely does. Binder isn't arguing about condensation physics because he's a bored nerd looking for a project. He's arguing about efficiency because efficiency is the only shield he has left against bankruptcy.
If he can optimize that lid to get 10% more winter survival, which means a stronger colony and more honey, that helps the margin.
If he can standardize the frames to save 20% on labor costs when he's harvesting, that helps the margin. The German over-engineering isn't a hobby, it's a survival mechanism.
He is trying to engineer a profit margin in a brutal, hostile economic landscape.
It's passion, but it's fueled by panic.
That's a great way to put it. It's a desperate attempt to find any edge he can.
So let's zoom out. We promised the listeners an answer to our core question. Based on this wild, shaky, shouting video, is this German over-engineering?
Where do we land?
I think we have to say yes, but it's a very specific flavor of it. It's not the corporate over-engineering of a Mercedes-Benz where a team of 100 people spends 2 years on a headlight.
No, it's different.
It's grassroots intellectual over-engineering.
I love that term.
It's the refusal to accept good enough. It comes from a single person's passionate, almost obsessive drive for perfection. In the U.S., the attitude is often, does it make honey? Is it profitable? Good, let's go. Ship it.
Yeah, get it done.
The German attitude, as represented by Binder, is the dew point mathematically optimized for the semi-permeable membrane? And does it align with the biological objective truth of the organism as described by Steiner? And also, does it make honey?
It's exhausting just listening to it.
It is, but you have to admit, there's a certain nobility in it. Binder mentions that he wants to work into the future. He wants to solve these problems so the next generation doesn't have to. He's trying to find the perfect system.
Even if he has to scream at a few YouTubers along the way to get there.
He views that as a necessary public service, I think.
The ultimate irony, of course, is that Binder is the loudest critic of the very thing he embodies.
He is the contradiction.
He screams, just use Langstroth. Stop talking about equipment. While standing there holding a modified, foil-layered calcium silicate lid that he's been personally testing for 2 years.
He is the man who hates the game but plays it harder and more intensely than anyone else. He uses German intellectualism to try to achieve American pragmatism. It's fascinating.
And Matulat, the foil to our protagonist. What does he represent in all this?
Matulat represents the modern reality of beekeeping. He represents the hobbyist, the person doing it for joy, the person who thinks, hey, maybe there are many ways to be right.
And Binder just can't accept that.
He can't, because for Binder, the stakes are life and death for the bee and for his business. Matulat has the luxury of being a diplomat. Binder feels like he's in a foxhole fighting a war.
That really humanizes him. It takes him from being just a shouting guy in a beanie to someone fighting for the soul of his industry.
Absolutely. He's an abrasive, intellectual, deeply committed warrior for the honeybee.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the noisy halls of Celle, what's the takeaway for us? If you aren't a German beekeeper worrying about the Mercosur trade deal, why does any of this matter?
I think the takeaway is about the trap of the lid. We all have a lid in our lives.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, in whatever you do, whether you're a coder, a writer, a manager, a parent, there is the gear, the tools, the software, the optimization hacks. That's the lid.
Right. It's the fun stuff to talk about.
It is. It feels productive to debate it. We love to focus on the lid.
Because buying a new app is easier than doing the actual work.
Exactly. But Binder is grabbing us by the shoulders and shaking us. He's saying the lid is 10%. The other 90% is biology.
The biology is the fundamentals, the messy stuff.
The biology is the hard stuff, the complex reality that actually determines success. If you are a manager, the biology is understanding the motivations and fears of your people, not buying a new project management tool.
If you're a writer, the biology is writing every single day, not finding the perfect fountain pen or keyboard.
Binder is telling us you can buy the fanciest lid in the world, but if you don't understand the biology, your bees will die anyway.
Stop optimizing your dew point while your colony is starving.
That's it. That's the whole lesson.
That is a powerful lesson to pull from a shaky video in a loud hall.
Sometimes the very rough sources have the deepest insights.
So the provocative question for you, the listener, is this. In your own life, your own work, are you obsessing over the lid? The easy, technical, viable solution to avoid dealing with the biology, the hard, messy, fundamental work of understanding the system.
Maybe it's time to close the bottom board and stop looking for a magic gadget.
I think that's the perfect place to end it. I'm going to go stare at a wooden box and think about my life choices now.
And I'm going to probably check the humidity levels in my office.
Huge thanks to Jürgen Binder and Ralf Matulat for letting us eavesdrop on their debate,
Yeah.
even if it was very rough. And thanks for listening, everyone.